Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Not having my usual coffee or tea with you guys here today. Having some sports drink, and I'll get to that. And today is Friday, the 4th of April, and I've been laid up this week. I'll get to that too. And I've been watching sort of everything that's been going on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things to be learned again. And unfortunately, those things have taken place here in my state, in northern Michigan. And the last few weeks, it's been on the prepping channels, and it's been a little bit on the news and whatnot, where they're telling people in Europe, you need to have 72 hours worth of stuff in case something happens. And I'm here to say that is woefully inadequate. And where do I come to that conclusion? Well, two things that happened this week. One, of course, was the storms in northern Michigan. Today is, of course, Friday, 4th of April. Those storms started last Saturday. And it's been 6 days now. There are still, it's basically like a hurricane hit up there. I mean, all the electric poles are, down in, Montmorency County. If anybody knows, that's up Atlanta, Onaway way. And everything pretty much, the tip of the mitten, Michigan looks like a hand, right? Everything from pretty much here up there's no electricity. They're still working on it. Petoskey was bad. We've got people up in Petoskey. Petoskey got hit pretty good. It was almost, there was like 4 counties up there. It was almost 100% of the people were out of power. It's literally going to have to be rebuilt. I know there are, from what I heard, there are certain substations that have been brought back online. But if the telephone poles between your place and the substation are destroyed, you're kind of SOL until they replace all them telephone poles. And this goes back to something that the old timers always talked about. I can remember the old men sitting around after storm blew through, and they said they don't know why in the hell people didn't put, when they originally put electricity in, why they didn't run all that stuff underground. If all that electricity lines would be underground, these kind of things from storms and stuff wouldn't be as much of an issue. But then that goes back to, living out in the sticks. The farther you are out away from those substations and those power sources, the longer it's going to be take for you to get reestablished to the grid. And that's why it's so important. The further you are out on the line, the more redundancy you have built into your life. And now this gets into the why I think 72 hours is a good start, but it's woefully inadequate. I mean, they're already 6 days into it up there, and there's kind of no end in sight. And it's same for the people down on, the Atlantic coast and the Gulf Coast and stuff. When they have a hurricane come through, you have to expect it might be a couple of weeks before you might have some stuff built back in. And then, of course, I posted pictures of it. People just lined up for gas and stuff. And I seen one post where somebody said, we didn't know this storm was going to be that bad. Well, when is a storm ever that good? I look at every storm like it's going to be bad, so, and there's a reason why I tell everybody to keep everything topped off all the time, as much as you can. Nobody has infinite resources. That I was watching this channel, I'm sure, but you have to keep stuff topped off because you just never know when SHTF is going to happen. And I've said that in multiple videos already. Now you're standing in line, you're depending on other people to get you fuel, something else might go wrong, compounding SHTFs. And this gets into my situation. We were on the edge of this here. We got rain, we got sleet, we got snow, but we never had that coating ice that they had up a little bit further north from where we're at here. And in the middle of this all taking place, of course, I worked and stuff, and I actually had a nice day outside last weekend. The storm kind of broke a little bit. I went outside and I did some gardening and whatnot. Well, we have family members in the care facility that we look after, try to give them as best life as possibly can under, their circumstances. So we go in there extremely frequently for a lot of different reasons. Well, we picked up norovirus, and as a general rule, when that stuff goes around, I typically won't get it. Well, I got it this time, and I got it bad. Went to work, I was fine. I got home from work, I literally crashed, and I was 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I was so sick I could barely stand up. And I had my wife take me to the emergency room because I've had previous bowel problems and bowel surgeries and stuff too. So it's nothing that you want to mess with. Now, can you imagine if I would have been where those massive power outages were? Now, here I am, incapacitated. I can't provide anything for my family. I'm basically an invalid. That's why you need to have secondary people in your family that know how to do stuff like fire up the generator, work the stuff in the first aid kit, know how to drive, and know what to do if the primary person or the secondary person is taken offline like I was. That's why you need to have secondary people, tertiary people in your family, in your group. I know that there are certain preppers that, one person in the marriage is the prepper and the other person just kind of goes along for the ride. That's fine until that primary person goes down. And that was me. And, we have the online medical charts and stuff. Here I am, I'm disclosing all the HIPAA information. But anyway, I actually looked at that this morning because it said, you had 17 new test results. So I looked at that this morning. They were all abnormal all the way down the line. And I was in there literally just wrenched in pain and heaving. And I got in there and they immediately started an IV on me. And I was there. I probably got there about 9 o'clock at night. And I don't know, it was maybe 2 a.m. by the time that they released me after they pumped me full of 3 bags of IV juice, and they gave me Zofran first, and Zofran is the normal anti-nausea medication they give you. That didn't even touch it. And then finally he came in, and the ER doctor, and he says, I'm going to give you the same stuff that we give chemo patients. And I've never had that before. Well, then that finally knocked it down. And then they said, we're going to give you something for pain in the IV. Well, they ended up giving me Dilaudid. And that finally knocked my symptoms down enough where they actually took a chest x-ray of me and stuff and a couple other tests. And it calmed everything down. And then I got the positive test for, they positively diagnosed me for norovirus. Now, you take that and you inject that into whatever SHTF scenario that you think that you're prepared for. Yep, I'm prepared for a power outage, or I'm prepared for this or that. And now you inject in there that the main person in the family or the main 2 people in the family, because this went through our entire household. So, now we're dealing with that for multiple people, right? Now you inject something like a norovirus into that too. Another good reason why you want to keep some type of sports drinks, electrolyte powder, but keep at least 1 can of the powder in your prep so you can, mix that up, because you might be able to not take anything in other than, water. And this gets into IVs. IVs are probably one of the most important medical procedures that's used thousands of times a day, that saves lives. That, can you imagine a world where there's no IVs? The supply line is down and there's no IVs. I'd have been in trouble. Yeah, probably would have made it. Been a lot worse on me than what it was. But, when that severe dehydration and stuff kicks in, if you don't have any way to replenish any of that, you're just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So even the simplest medical interventions have brought our civilization up quite a bit. And that is just without those even basic medical interventions, the world would be a lot different place. So 72 hours really isn't that much, you know. None of the grocery stores were open up there. None of the places had food. I heard a lot of the, when it first started, a lot of the places had, oh, excuse me, man, oh man, I'm still reeling from some of this stuff. But a lot of the places were working on donated food. Places were basically using the food up and cooking it and making it for people, so it didn't go to waste. And of course, then they had all the influx of people that are coming in there to fix things. So you have all your linemen and your emergency workers and stuff like that. So you have that influx of people that are trying to house them in hotels and whatnot. Of course, those hotels and stuff are all on generator power. And I've seen the news reports where they said this is the worst storm that, you got 25 to 35 year linemen. They said this is the worst storm that we've ever seen here, that the whole system's got to be rebuilt from the ground up. So, there's a lot of takeaways from this. And I think, like I said, the big one is 72 hours isn't enough. And, being out at the end of the grid and at the end of the line and stuff, that's all going to go by how much, how much resources that you've had put up in advance. Living out in the sticks has its disadvantages. And I have said this before too in videos that sometimes living at the end of the line isn't always the best, because they're going to restore power in town first, then out to the substations, then out to the people closest to the substations. And if you're down the line at the end of that line, that's just the natural progression of how they fix things like that. And that's why it's so important that the person at the end of the line has their redundancies in place. And, they did get generators and stuff in. I think it was the Lowe's in Petoskey got, several pallets of generators and stuff in. There were people that brought generators from downstate, took them up there, but now you have to get fuel for them. So now you're looking for, gas or propane, and that's the one advantage of a propane generator that I have found. I can store a lot more gas with a propane generator, or if you have one that's hooked up to, natural gas or a large, propane tank, you get a 1,000-gallon propane tank that runs your furnace or whatever. You can have that run your generator too, so you're a little bit ahead. I seen one post where somebody up there was affected by that, and they were actually really smart. I wanted to share this with you guys as well. They when they put their place up, and their place is semi off grid, they can exist off grid. They actually had their furnace wired into an outlet that they can plug in and unplug, where most furnaces are wired directly into a breaker box. That is a great idea, because what happens is then if there's a power outage and something affects that outlet, you're not having power come into your house, you can unplug your furnace and you can plug that into the main frame of a generator, and you can eliminate that whole part of the system where you couldn't run the furnace. You can run the furnace basically on a portable generator direct, which is, for most people up here in the north, is the most important thing, so you don't freeze and your water pipes don't freeze and stuff like that. So that was a really ingenious thing. And if I ever replace the furnace here at my place, I'm going to seriously think about something like that. So there you go. That's the update here over the last week. I've been down for 4 days with this. I'm finally kind of getting up and around a little bit today. I've been offline and stuff. I've been watching it. And then meanwhile, while all this is going on, the stock market is crashing and everything else is going on with that. So I could talk about that forever too, but a lot of the other prepping channels are already picking up the slack on that, so I don't really have to talk about that. But I'm not in the stock market anyway, so it doesn't affect me as much directly as it does a lot of other people. But that's another thing to watch. So just some discussion points here today. I appreciate each and every one of you guys watching my channel. Sorry I've been offline here for a couple of days, but hopefully I can get back into it. Got a couple more videos that I got planned for you guys that we're going to get out. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Build redundancy in, and 72 hours is a good start, but always stretch for longer, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and then go from there, because even if you got some things in place, things can turn bad in a hurry. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys out there. I hope you guys are doing well, and you guys have a good one.